Greetings, friends. Welcome to CTUCC ConferenceCast for May 24th, 2012, the regular podcast of the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. Whoever you are, and wherever you may be on life's journey at this very moment, you are welcome here. We begin this week's conference cast with this meditation from the Reverend Dr. Mike Penn-Strah, South Central Regional Minister. In the second chapter of Acts, things get exciting. There's a rush of a mighty wind, people praising God in languages they never knew, and even tongues of fire dancing on their heads. Simon Peter says it's the fulfillment of a prophecy from Zechariah. God says, "I will pour out my Spirit on everyone. Your sons and your daughters will proclaim my message. Your young men will see visions, and your old men will have dreams."
As we read the story of the first Pentecost, it's clear that on that day, Jesus' disciples were gripped with a vision of new possibility. Partly, it was a vision of new possibility for the world in which they lived, a vision of unity, of a world in which people from widely diverse cultures would be united by bonds of mutual love and concern. But it was also a vision of new possibilities for their personal lives and for their life together as disciples of Jesus Christ. In that moment, the disciples recognized that God had not, as they had begun to fear, sent Jesus to tease them into believing that they could change their lives, then cruelly allow Jesus to be killed and all their hopes dashed. Rather, in that moment, the disciples recognized that just the opposite had happened. As Jesus had promised, God had sent them an advocate, the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of God, to be with them. Their lives were now directed and empowered by God's Spirit, just as Jesus' life had been. They were giddy with the strength of that Spirit and the new possibilities it opened to them. That vision of new possibilities turned the disciples around. No longer were they a frightened little group huddling in fear in a locked room. They were transformed into daring missionaries, willing to go forth to the ends of the earth to boldly tell the story of God's love made known in Jesus Christ to all who would listen. And isn't it true that what happened to the disciples must, and in fact does, also happen to each one of us? Each of our lives is also empowered by some sort of vision. It's our visions and dreams which give our lives meaning and direction. The vision of a different future empowers us to change our lives in small and sometimes major ways. Indeed, I believe that every major change which occurs in our lives happens because God touches our lives through some person or some event which enables us to develop a new vision of how our lives can be different. Can you recall how you or others have changed jobs, ended relationships, begun new ones, gone to school, or joined a church because some event or someone enabled you to recognize, my life can be different. I'm going to follow that dream. So the Pentecost question, which God raises for each of us through this powerful story, is this: what kind of vision is empowering your life? What new future is God leading you toward?
Here's a prayer for this week.
Holy One, empower us today with a new vision of the exciting, grace-filled future into which you are calling us, and give us the courage to live into that future as your faithful disciples. Amen.
Please also remember in your prayers today the family and friends of the Reverend F. Barry Stipp, who served several Connecticut churches over 30 years of ministry. He died on May 13th at the age of 81. We also mourn the passing of the Reverend James Kidd, who is fondly remembered for his long ministry at the Asylum Hill Congregational Church UCC in Hartford. He died on May 19th at the age of 79. In the news this week, at the South Congregational Church of Granby, UCC, they've decided to teach their children more than tolerance, with a curriculum called Free to Be Me, Free to Be You, which they've developed themselves from a wide variety of existing resources. They lead young people to appreciate the differences that exist between themselves and others, and to offer a sincere welcome to someone who isn't like themselves. This is about celebrating differences rather than just understanding them, says Christian Education Director Maggie Burnett, one of the authors of the curriculum. It's about affirming rather than tolerance. The church voted an open and affirming statement 2 years ago. And with this new curriculum, they're bringing that commitment to the very youngest among them. On Tuesday, the Connecticut Conference announced the premiere of a new publication coming in September. CTUCC this month will feature stories from local churches, their ministries, worship, and outreach, as well as other news from around the conference. It will be distributed to ministers and to local church newsletter editors to be included in their own publications. The editors hope it will lift up the good work and faithful lives of congregations, provide some material for spiritual uplift, and help members and worshipers stay aware of what's happening in the Connecticut Conference. Other stories on our website today include the profile of the Reverend Matt Laney, the new senior minister at the Asylum Hill Congregational Church UCC in Hartford. As always, you can find our current headlines at ctucc.org/news. Hartford Seminary's Scott Thuma will speak to conference clergy about the other 80% on May 29th in Newington. Give Squared has a retreat on May 31st. Silver Lake is looking for golfers to play for God at the Silver Lake Golf Tournament in Middlefield on June 5th. And there will be a panel discussion on protecting planet Earth, held in Hartford on June 6th. Chuck Erickson is offering a 3-day course in the basics of Christian education at Hartford Seminary, June 11th through 13th. National Youth Event attendees have 2 orientation sessions, one on June 13th, the other on the 26th. The UCC Musicians National Network Conference is June 22nd through 25th in Kansas City, Missouri. And the National Youth Event itself runs July 10th through 13th at Purdue University. The Craigville Colloquy is July 16th through 20th, and the UCC Musicians Association Conference is July 29th through August 2nd. You can always find out what's coming up in the Connecticut Conference by visiting us at ctucc.org/events. We're going to take 5 minutes this conference cast for John Gage, Cheng Ho-jun, Audrey Dolan, Eric Anderson, and John Selders. This is a video prepared by Liz Miller and Eric Anderson for the worship service at the May 12th conference meeting in Suffield, given the title, Witnesses to the Spirit.
In my own congregation, which has been open and affirming for 21 years, long before I got there, we understand that the people come there not just because of our welcome for gay and lesbian people, but because that welcome in today's environment is still so radical that if a church is willing to go that far, they know that there's a place there for them, no matter who else they are. They know that when we say, no matter who you are, no matter where you are on life's journey, we mean it, because those people are there, and those people, there must be a place here for me too. And people come and walk in our door, and I can't tell you how many people have told me they spend the first year at United Church crying for joy because they never knew there was a place like this. And then they cry because they're so happy to be there. And then they bring all of that feeling and all of that connectedness into the work of the church as well. And it's beautiful.
Korean church ministry is dandelion ministry. I bloom the flower, but I never see the seeds and fruits. I never get any fruits or seed. The seeds have to fly away. Dandelion bloom up once they make a seed and fly away. But I'm very strongly believe that wherever this seed goes, they make their own flower. Even I cannot see their flower, but I know somewhere out there, they make their own flower. Then that flower make another seed too, then fly away. My vision, whole of the world is covered by dandelion.
I feel like a lot of things I do come from church because, I have had my first friends there and things like that, but then also I've been a part of the youth group and things like that, so I've gone on mission trips. I help teach Sunday school, so I feel like every stage in my life it's been that way, and I found Silver Lake through church, and that's a really big part of my life too. I don't know, sometimes people are like, oh, it must be hard to be like a preacher's kid or be at church all the time or things like that, but it's like, I can't really picture it any other way, but I don't really want to. Like, I'm happy that God is so much a part of my life, and that I do really feel like a lot of things that have happened in life, or like opportunities and stuff, have come from God and being connected, really strongly connected to a faith community and things like that.
But there just isn't anything quite like the experience of being in a room, all of us striving to make our connection with God. We each have to make it in our own way, and so we're all coming at this one grand divine figure quite literally from every point on the sphere, and if I could think in 4 dimensions, in every point in time as well. That experience of shared reaching out for, as Tillich said, the source of all being. Is there a substitute for that?
The vision for Amistad Church from the very beginning was to couple the strength that we have to gather and to convene. Also in our tradition, the freedom of the pulpit and the voice that we have to merge that in a context of worship and action. So to couple those two things together, and that still does matter. It matters that we gather together, and we gather together in celebration, in observance. That's what communion is for us, as well as we gather as a family. That's why church matters. Well, it's gotta start here, inwardly. It's got to start with us, and as we respond to the call to address the shift that's happening in our larger world. We're not in, Jesus said, not for us not to be while we're in the world, not of the world. All right. So what does that really mean for us today? How do we interpret, not being in the world, existing in the world, but maybe not of the world? Well, taking note for them, and maybe even shaping what the world that we live in is and becomes. And I'd like to think that's why church maybe matters.
And that brings this conference cast to a close. Thanks to Mike Penn-Strah for his reflection, to all the participants in Witnesses to the Spirit, and to GarageBand for our music. Primary funding for ConferenceCast comes from your congregation's gifts to our church's wider mission, basic support, changing lives through the United Church of Christ. This is Eric Anderson, the Minister of Communications and Technology for the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ, praying that your days this week may be filled with the presence, the guidance, and the grace of God.